I remember that day with a clarity that surprises an old man like me. The evening sun painted Lagos in gold, but I felt only the cold air of my air-conditioned Mercedes as I waited for my driver to return. The meeting had gone well, another acquisition for Ease Industries, another victory to add to my empire of steel and concrete. But victories had begun to taste like ash in my mouth. Through the tinted window, I watched Lagos pulse with life, street vendors calling out, cars honking, people rushing everywhere with purpose. I had risen above it all, yet I felt more alone than when I had nothing. 20 years of building an empire, and for what? My Adana was long gone, taken by cancer before we could have children. My mansion echoed with emptiness every night. That's when I saw him, a boy, perhaps 7 years old, so thin his collarbone jutted beneath his tattered shirt. His eyes were what struck me, hollow, yet somehow still alive with something I had long forgotten. Hope, perhaps. Or desperation so deep it circled back to determination. He approached my window hesitantly, hand outstretched. I had seen 1,000 children like him before and had instructed my drivers to ignore them all. Today should have been no different. "Please, sir," he said, his voice barely audible through the glass. "I haven't eaten in 2 days." I meant to wave him away. I truly did. But in his eyes, I suddenly saw myself, a hungry boy from the slums of Ajagunal who once begged outside restaurants until old Chief Nwakama took a chance on me as his errand boy. I saw my own hollow eyes, my own trembling hands. "What is your name?" I found myself asking after lowering the window. He startled, as if no one had asked him that before. "Timmy, sir." "Where are your parents, Timmy?" He looked down at his bare feet. "Gone, sir. My mother died last year. I never knew my father." I don't know what possessed me in that moment. Perhaps it was Adana's voice in my head, she had always wanted children. Perhaps it was God's hand, though I had long stopped believing. Or perhaps it was simply that I saw myself in this boy, and in that moment, I couldn't bear to leave myself behind again. "Ibrahim," I called to my driver who had returned. "Open the door." The boy stepped back, fear flashing across his face. Street children knew that not all who offered help had good intentions. "I'm not going to hurt you," I said. "When was the last time you had a proper meal? Would you like one?" His eyes widened with disbelief, then narrowed with suspicion. Smart boy. Trust came at too high a price on these streets. "I own a restaurant not far from here," I continued. "You can eat as much as you want." Still, he hesitated. I understood his caution, but something in me couldn't let him walk away. "I was like you once," I said quietly, words I had never spoken aloud to anyone. "A boy with an empty stomach and nowhere to go. Someone helped me once. Perhaps it's time I passed that kindness forward." Something in my voice must have convinced him, because after a long moment, he nodded. Ibrahim opened the door, and Timmy climbed in, his small body barely making an impression on the leather seat. I didn't know then how that simple decision would change both our lives forever. I didn't know that the empire I had built with cold calculation would find its heart in a street child. I didn't know that in saving him, I was saving myself. As we drove away from the curb, past the glittering high-rises and into the heart of Lagos, I felt something stir in my chest, a feeling I thought had died with Adana. A feeling of possibility. Of purpose. That evening, I fed a hungry child. I didn't yet know I was feeding my own hungry soul. The first months were not easy. Timmy would wake screaming from nightmares, memories of hunger and violence haunting his sleep. He hoarded food in his room, bread rolls tucked under mattresses, fruits hidden in drawers, afraid that the abundance would suddenly disappear. Sometimes I would find him sleeping on the floor rather than the bed, his body curled protectively around himself as if he were still on the streets. I was not a natural father. I had spent decades building walls around my heart, speaking only in the language of contracts and profit margins. I had forgotten how to be gentle. How to comfort. How to love without conditions. Why did you take me in? Timmy asked one evening, 6 months after he had come to live in my mansion. We sat on the terrace, watching the sun set over Lagos. I'm not entirely sure, I answered honestly. Something about you reminded me of myself. Were you poor too? Poorer than you can imagine. I slept under market stalls and fought dogs for scraps. His eyes widened. Children always find it hard to imagine adults as children, especially powerful adults as vulnerable ones. How did you become rich? I smiled. Hard work. Some luck. An old businessman who saw potential in me, like I saw in you. Will I be rich like you someday? You will be whatever you choose to be, I said. But more importantly, you will never be hungry or homeless again. This I promise you. The word surprised me as they left my mouth. I had not intended to make such a binding commitment. Yet I knew, looking at this boy, so fragile yet so resilient, that I meant every word. When I formally adopted him a year later, giving him my name, Timothy Obinna, the media called it a publicity stunt. A cold-hearted businessman attempting to soften his image. My business rivals whispered that it was guilt or madness. None of them understood that in Timmy's eyes, I had found redemption for all my years of ruthless ambition. The boy thrived. He devoured books like a man starved, which in many ways, he had been. His mind was sharp, questioning everything, absorbing knowledge like a sponge. I enrolled him in the best school in Lagos, and he rose to the top of his class within months. The other children say I don't belong there, he confided one day after coming home with a bruised cheek. They say I'm still a street rat playing dress-up. I felt a rage I had not known since my youth. And what did you tell them? That my father says where I come from doesn't matter. It's where I'm going that counts. My heart squeezed painfully in my chest. Father. He had never called me that before. And where are you going, Timmy? I asked, my voice rough with emotion. He looked up at me, his young face suddenly serious. Wherever you need me to go. It was then that I realized what I had done. In saving this child, I had not just given him a future, I had given myself one as well. For the first time since Adana's death, I had someone to plan for, someone to protect, someone who cared whether I came home at night. As the years passed, Timmy grew tall and strong. The haunted look in his eyes faded, replaced by confidence and kindness. He excelled at school, then university, studying business and engineering. By 25, he was working alongside me at Ease Industries, bringing fresh ideas and an ethical perspective that I, in my single-minded pursuit of wealth, had sometimes neglected. You treat your workers better than I ever did, I observed one day after he had implemented a new healthcare program for our factory employees. I learned from your mistakes as well as your successes, he said with a smile. Isn't that what sons are supposed to do? Son. The word filled me with pride and fear in equal measure. Pride in the man he had become. Fear because I had something precious to lose again. And lose I did, but not in the way I expected. The first signs of trouble came quietly. A delayed permit here. A withdrawn contract there. Whispers in boardrooms that suddenly went silent when I entered. At 73, I was no longer the force I once was. My hair had gone white, my once imposing frame now stooped slightly. Some said it was time for me to step down, to hand the reins of Ease Industries to younger hands. But it wasn't age that brought me to my knees, it was betrayal. Kola Adenuga had been my business partner for 15 years. We had weathered economic storms together, expanded across West Africa together. I had trusted him like a brother. Which is why I didn't see the knife until it was firmly in my back. It's nothing personal, Obinna, he said as he revealed his alliance with my competitors to take over my company. Just business. You would have done the same in your prime. Perhaps he was right. The man I had been before Timmy came into my life might have done exactly that. But that man was gone, transformed by the simple act of opening a car door for a hungry child. The attacks came from all sides. False accusations of corruption. Manipulated financial reports suggesting Ease Industries was failing. Bribes to government officials to investigate our operations. My empire, built over 40 years of relentless work, began to crumble. Then my heart began to fail. The doctors spoke in grave tones about cardiomyopathy, about stress exacerbating an underlying condition. They spoke of transplant lists and waiting times. They did not speak of hope. I kept the severity of my condition from Timmy, but he knew something was wrong. He took on more responsibility at the company, fighting our enemies on all fronts while I grew weaker. I watched him work himself to exhaustion, coming home late only to sit by my bedside, discussing strategies, reassuring me that everything would be all right. "Let it go, son," I told him one night as he pored over legal documents at my bedside. "It's just buildings and money. Not worth your health." He looked up at me, his eyes, no longer hollow but filled with determination, flashing with an emotion I couldn't quite place. "It's not about the money or the buildings," he said fiercely. "It's about what they represent. Your life's work. Your legacy. I won't let them destroy it." "My legacy?" I laughed weakly. "If I have any legacy worth preserving, it's sitting right here beside me." He took my hand then, his strong fingers wrapping around my frail ones. "Then let me protect both." I didn't know what he meant then. I didn't know that while I slept, he was meeting with doctors, undergoing tests, making arrangements. One night, as I drifted between wakefulness and sleep, I heard him praying beside my bed. "God, if you're listening," he whispered, "please let me be a match. Please let me save him as he once saved me." The realization of what he intended hit me like a physical blow. I wanted to sit up, to forbid what he was planning, but weakness kept me silent, trapped in my failing body as my son, the boy I had saved on a whim, now a man willing to risk everything for me, bargained with God for my life. The next morning, when he came to me with news of a miracle, a heart donor had been found, I saw the truth in his eyes. But before I could confront him, my heart seized in my chest, the world went black, and I thought, this is how it ends. Not with my empire saved, but with my son's sacrifice. I was wrong. I woke to the steady beeping of hospital machines and the sensation of something different inside my chest. Something strong and young and full of life. For a moment, I felt a strange elation at having survived, but then a cold dread washed over me as I realized I was alone in the room. No Timmy at my bedside. "Where is my son?" I asked when the nurse came to check my vitals. Her eyes filled with a sympathy that made my new heart hammer painfully against my ribs. She silently handed me an envelope. My name was written on it in Timmy's precise handwriting. With trembling fingers, I opened it. "Dear Father. If you are reading this, then the surgery was successful. You have my heart now, take good care of it. It has always belonged to you anyway, from that first day you opened your car door to a starving boy with no future. The doctors told me I wasn't a compatible donor, but I found a way. I'm sorry for the deception, but I knew you would never allow it if I told you the truth. I convinced them that as your son and heir, I had the right to make this decision. It wasn't difficult. Your name opens many doors in Lagos, even hospital doors. Please don't be angry with the medical team. I can be very persuasive when I need to be, another trait I learned from you. I want you to know that this was not a sacrifice. It was a gift, freely given. You once told me that the measure of a man is not what he gains but what he gives away. I hope I have measured up in your eyes. Do you remember what you said to me that first day? In the car? You said someone helped you once, and it was time to pass that kindness forward. This is me passing it forward, Father. This is me thanking you for the life you gave me. As for our company, don't worry. Before the surgery, I found evidence of Cola's dealings with government officials, bribes, threats, falsified documents. I've left everything with our lawyers. Ease Industries is safe. Your legacy is safe. I only ask 3 things of you. Live fully with this second chance. My heart was young and strong, let it carry you for many more years. Find another child like I once was. Give them what you gave me. Not just a home or education, but dignity. A future. And sometimes, when the sun sets over Lagos, sit on our terrace and remember the boy you saved. Remember that your kindness rippled outward in ways you never imagined. I love you, Father. I was hungry, and you fed me. I was homeless, and you sheltered me. I was nobody, and you made me somebody. Every beat of my heart in your chest is my thank you. Your son always. Timmy. I pressed the letter to my chest, feeling the steady beat of my son's heart, inside me. A primal sound tore from my throat, a wail of grief that I had not allowed myself even when Adana died. The nurses rushed in, faces concerned, but backed away when they saw me clutching the letter. In the days that followed, I learned the full story. Timmy had falsified medical records to appear compatible. He had bribed officials, pulled strings, done everything I had taught him about wielding power, all to give his life for mine. By the time anyone realized what had happened, it was too late. His heart, was already in my chest, keeping me alive while he was gone. Kola Adenuga and his conspirators were indeed facing charges, just as Timmy's letter promised. My son had worked tirelessly in his final weeks, fighting my enemies even as he prepared to leave this world. He had saved everything I had built. But the empire I had once prized above all else now seemed hollow without him to share it. 1 month after the surgery, when my body had accepted Timmy's heart and I was strong enough to stand without assistance, I asked to be taken to his grave. It was a simple marker in the cemetery where Adana also rested. Father, mother, and son, a family united in death though blood had never bound us in life. I stood there, the Lagos sun beating down on my shoulders, and made a promise to my son. The following week, I announced the creation of the Timothy Obinna Ease Foundation, dedicated to taking children off the streets of Lagos and giving them homes, education, and dignity. I sold off half my business holdings to fund it, much to the shock of the business community. The stone-cold businessmen of Lagos had finally gone soft, they whispered. Let them whisper. I had learned what mattered. Today, 5 years later, I sit on the terrace where Timmy and I used to watch the sunset. Below me, in what was once my private garden, 30 children play, former street children now housed in what used to be my mansion. Their laughter rises up to me on the evening breeze. I place my hand over my chest, feeling the strong beat of my son's heart. It has never faltered, never weakened. The doctors call it remarkable. I call it love. As darkness falls over Lagos, I look out at the city that once represented conquest to me but now represents possibility, the possibility of one life touching another, of kindness passed forward, of love that transcends blood and bone, of sacrifice that transforms grief into purpose. In the end, it was not my wealth that saved me. It was the love of a boy at my window, a boy who became the man who gave me his heart, who taught me that the true measure of wealth is not what you have, but what you give away. And I, Obinna Ease, once the stone-cold businessman of Lagos, have been given everything, including the sacred responsibility to beat with my son's heart, to live with my son's love, to continue my son's legacy. Each day, with each beat of Timmy's heart in my chest, I strive to be worthy of his final gift.